Hi folks, hope you're doing well. I watched a video earlier that was quite interesting actually. It was this young man, American man, who caught an Uber. And the Uber driver was a good-looking young lady who was a bit scantily dressed. She was sort of being incredibly friendly to the point of overly friendly immediately with him. Talking about the fact that she does Uber part-time, but she's really a laundry. Eh? She advertised, or what's it called? Underwear sort of stuff. She's a model for that sort of stuff. So he's thinking, ooh, really? Okay, why exactly are you telling me that? Well, he's been recorded, and it's a setup because it's to see if he would cheat. And of course, his girlfriend is watching. So this girl's saying, okay, have you got a girlfriend? He went, no. She said, well, what are you planning later? She said, well, he's going to a party with some friends. She says, okay. So she starts chatting him up. She says a few things that are sort of going to get his interest. Says she's got piercings done recently in a chest area. And does he want to see? Does he want to touch, etc., etc. All these sort of things. So he's sort of thinking, okay, this is a bit odd. But he's sort of trying to keep the conversation going. In the end, she sort of asked him again, do you have a girlfriend? And he went, well, sort of, not really, it's complicated. So she says, oh, is your girlfriend a bit of a bitch? And he went, well, no, can't call her that. That's just unfair. No, she's not that. No. It's just a bit complicated right now. Of course, he doesn't know that what he's saying is incredibly true. It's incredibly complicated right now because you're chatting up this Uber driver and your girlfriend is watching you. So it's getting more and more complicated indeed. But the reason why I'm mentioning that is because I've done a few videos talking about Kingdom. So I've got to do some speaking about the world. Generally speaking, if you are not wealthy, one of your more extreme base desires is going to be lust. And that's the case for most people. We all have it. The more wealthy people, they change their lust from sexual lust to monetary or power lust. Of course, if you're poor, there's no point you having lusts in those areas because you're never going to achieve them, right? Generally speaking, you're never going to achieve any of their lusts, really, but there's one that you might achieve, which is a sexual one. So everyone has that. That's what Bill Burr points out in one of his acts, that most men, if they were given the opportunity, would have intercourse with most of the women who they meet. If they could, they would find most of the women they meet attractive enough, to be able to have intercourse with them. That they would choose, if they could, to do so, if the offer was there. Now, this man in Uber is now thinking it's one of those days that he just happened to get into the Uber of the one girl who's incredibly hot and is coming on to him like he's the best thing since sliced bread. Now, he's not thinking he's going to get caught, because not as if he comes across this sort of thing every day, is it? So, of course, it's not wrong to have a little fantasy about that sort of thing. That's okay. And to be honest, most women will actually say of their boyfriends, that's okay. Most women do believe that if you fantasize about someone, that's okay, so long as you don't actually do it. Well, okay, let's pop into God's kingdom a second with regards to this one. The Lord said, don't even think about it. If you even think about it, that's a sin. The reason why the Lord said, don't even think about it, is because if you think about it and you reason and you consider and you take that thought and you welcome it, all of that is at this moment in time, you've not cheated on your partner. But what you have done, you've accepted you would if those conditions are met. So, for example, people have this sort of jokey thing that which celebrity would you if you could? So you can have a list of, I would, if that person was interested in me, I would, and that's my one that I would sleep with outside of the marriage if that person. But of course, generally speaking, there's no chance at all that celebrity is going to look at you and suddenly all their desires are going to focus on you and they're going to rip their clothes off and your clothes off. That is just so unlikely that that's ever going to happen, right? That is true. But when it comes to a work colleague, when it comes to a friend, that's a different matter completely, because you're in close contact with these people on a regular basis. Even when it comes to the fantasy of an Uber driver or taxi driver or that sort of thing. Because if you not specifically pointed it at one person to say it has to be that particular Uber driver, if you just have this fantasy in your head of an Uber driver, a female Uber driver starts chatting me up. Like for example, how many men Uber drivers would have the fantasy that a female passenger will come onto them in a heavy way? It's going to be some. There shouldn't be, because if they ever do anything, they're going to get reported. They're probably going to get arrested. They will certainly never work Uber again, and they will possibly get arrested. But that's why the Lord said, don't even think about it. If you fantasize about your neighbor's wife, you've already committed adultery. In your mind, you have. You don't need to have done it for it to be a sin. In your mind, you already have. Because if you consider it, and you accept it, and you welcome it, then you've already basically said, if she's interested, then I'm down for that. That's why with this bloke, that's why he struggled. Initially, he may not have thought this woman was serious, but the more she came on to him, the more he thought, well, this is just amazing. This is my lucky day. But of course, his girlfriend was listening to everything. Because generally speaking, one of the first things you're going to ask if that sort of thing happens is, why on earth would that person want me? Yeah. The bloke in the video, he wasn't chiseled. He wasn't, the best looking of blokes. If you give him a score, you'd probably give him about a 5, maybe 5 out of 10. So why would a 8 or 9 out of 10? You couldn't see in the video. Her face was obscured. You couldn't see what she looked like. But apparently she was incredibly good looking. Why would she suddenly want to throw everything to the wind and get with him? Well, I think in his mind, I think part of it in his mind is that he was thinking there are a lot of young women now who enjoy sex as much as men do, so therefore that may be one reason why. And yeah, he's just thinking, well, all those days that I looked at women like this, and they looked at me with sort of a disgusting look on their face, they all led up to this. Whereas now this one thinks I'm adorable. Yeah, no, she doesn't. Nope, it's a setup. You got to assume in this sort of situation that it's going to be possibly a setup. But you have to understand, folks, this is one of the base desires of people. Lust. Yeah, Sodom and Gomorrah got to where they got to because of the fact that base desire of lust was there. And those places became places where it was like, okay, whatever you desire is yours. So long as there's, I was just going to say so long as there's consent, but apparently according to scripture, there didn't need to be consent. Yeah, there was a crowd of people outside the building that I think it was Lot, wasn't it? Who was there? And they were trying to break down the door so they could have sex with them. Basically force sex upon them. Consent wasn't an issue. They were demanding that the person whose property it was would just send them out. It was that bad. Now, of course, our society at the moment does still have a consent point to it. But we do need to understand that this is one of the things about the world, is that lust for power, lust for, the way God put it to me is that where the Bible says you cannot serve God and mammon means gain. You could describe it as lust, but it's gain. You can't serve God and gain as in the desire to gain power, position, money, lust, all this sort of thing. You can't serve God while serving that stuff as well. You could easily, actually, that's a good point. You could say mammon means you. You can't serve God and serving you at the same time. Because then it doesn't have to mean anything, does it? It just means you. It's like you can't have one foot in God's kingdom and one foot in the world. Just can't do it. You can do it, but it won't count as you serving God. It will count as you being in the world. You just put a toe in God's kingdom. That's why I say, we need to. I suppose that's the point, is that what God's been putting on me over the last couple of days is about protecting the younger people, because the younger people don't know what the real base desires of the world are. And they don't know that innocence is really not a part of it. Not in any way, shape or form. So they may come into it They may come out of their schooling or whatever, and they may go onto YouTube thinking, I can do a little YouTube channel, keep it nice and innocent, and within no time at all, people are trying to get them to do things that are not so innocent. And then themselves, they get to 18 and then they look around and they see, well, there's other 18-year-olds who are making more money by doing these crazy things. And so if I want to compete with them, then I've got to do what they do, plus a bit more, in order to get what they've got. To get the same level of support, same level of likes and etc. as they have. Oh, it's dangerous. It's a bad, bad system. But yeah. Let's say we all have base desires. That's the reality. If you've lived in the world as an adult, you've experienced base desires. And you know them, and you know what they're about, and that when it comes down to it, those base desires can be quite powerful. And that poor lad in that Uber car, to a certain degree, most men in that situation, married men, young men with girlfriends, older men with girlfriends, married people, they would be very tempted by that young lady, by the Uber driver, coming on to him in such an obvious way. Because he felt it was a bit odd, but he persuaded himself that, well, no, she's being honest here. Why? She just is. She's being honest here. He persuaded himself of that, and that helped him to continue the discussion, go deeper and deeper into a hole of crap, basically, with his girlfriend watching. And so, quite likely, his relationship exploded as a result of that. I mean, they showed him try his little hardest to cover it up, and he did his best. He did. He tried to say that he thought that his girlfriend would get on with that woman, that maybe they could have a threesome or something like that. Of which his girlfriend knew was complete and utter BS, because he was telling this woman that he didn't have a girlfriend. And when she sort of pushed him on it and said, yeah, I sort of do, but it's complicated. So the girlfriend, she saw all of that. But the poor bloke, he tried to sort of back out of it and get himself out of trouble. I don't think it worked. I do think that most men, certainly at times of our lives, if we were in that sort of situation with that sort of offer given, we may quite likely have been incredibly tempted to go along with that. Well, as I say, for a lot of people, it's a fantasy. It's a fantasy that you're suddenly in this situation where there's this possible 9 or 10 woman who's basically completely and utterly coming onto you. No mucking around at all. Making it absolutely obvious that she just wants to rip her clothes off and yours off. And of course, from a human point of view, a lot of people are going, I can sort of see that. There's a picture of Amber. That was a long time ago, because Look at the bedding there. There's one duvet on the floor. Now there's about 8. So that was a couple of years ago, I think. Yeah, there's a few more duvets on the floor. That one's still there. But there's a few more there now. So, yeah. Most of those duvets were mine at some point. Yeah. So there's one duvet there that cost me about £400, and I bought it because it's supposed to be one of these ones where you wouldn't get feathers coming out of it. But you've got feathers coming out of it still, so it's a waste of money. So there you go, doggy tag it. Oh, yeah. Well, there you go. So there you go, folks. Base desires. And how they can get us into trouble. And certainly how fantasizing about things is dangerous. Because then if the opportunity arises, you're more than likely to give into it. And if you're already in a relationship, that's a bad decision to make. Like I had one earlier on one of these relationship discussion ones, where people, put their relationship problems on Reddit and sorry, just yawning. Yeah. Well, anyway, they had one of those, and the one on that was interesting because it was quite similar, but then from a female point of view, where a female in a relationship with a man, they've been together for quite a while, very loving relationship. She then meets a guy who's supposed to be incredibly rich. This man comes onto her mega strong. Now, for a woman, a bloke who's good looking and rich is basically equal to the cheater story of the man in the Uber with the beautiful woman. They're very much equal. This man was promising her everything, saying that he would marry her and give her a lavish life. So she left her fiance for this man. And this man was just using her. All he wanted was a booty call. That was all he used her for. And she threw away a relationship with a man who loved her. With a man who she loved. Ish. She obviously didn't love him that much if she left him for a rich man. But she had that moment where she had fantasized about someone who was incredibly rich, wanting her, promising her the world, and it never happens. And suddenly it happens. She gives into it. She's thrown away a perfectly good relationship for nothing. To be used and abused by this rich person. Oh, you see it. I mean, on these things, on these videos, you see it quite often where somebody has cheated on their husband or wife with someone else. When that comes out, the relationship is over, then in no time at all, the person wants back. They realise what a heck of a massive mistake they made and they want to go back. Problem is, generally speaking, they can't go back. Because they've done one of the worst things they can do. And their excuse quite often is, you weren't making me feel wanted, and this other person made me feel wanted. Yeah. Who wants you now, though? That's the thing now, nobody wants you. The person who you gave it to that caused you to cheat on the husband or wife you were with doesn't want you anymore because they know that you're a cheater, so they don't want you. Your husband or wife that you're cheating on, they don't want you back. So the person who you didn't think wanted you that much did want you, wanted you wholeheartedly, and yet the person who you cheated with only wanted what they could get from you. And generally speaking, that's the way it's going to be when you cheat. Because you're not likely to meet the person who God has designed for you and cheat with that person on the person you're with. That is incredibly unlikely to happen, to say the least. So most likely, if you're going to cheat, you're cheating with someone who's probably more wrong for you than the person who you're with already. Well, unless the person that you're with already you got with while you're with someone else, and that person that you're with now, you were cheating on with someone else in the first place. Which, for some people, that is their story. Not good, not wise. Don't give in or try to resist your base desires. So we all have them. Now, a lot of people have a base desire of that bit of danger. Base jumping, that sort of thing, is a base desire of some people. That bit of danger. And I've seen some of the videos of these people doing this. There's no way, shape, or form I would do any of that. Absolutely not. I don't like heights. I have no interest in running off a blinking mountain with a parachute on my back. Thank you very much. Don't want to do it. Some people, though, they have that base desire for that bit of danger. And it goes from one extreme to another. Drugs, I suppose, is a base desire to other people as well. Yeah, they're more extreme to try these things, to try LSD and stuff like that. Yeah, again, not for me. Not interested. But we have to try and resist base desires, and we have to try and challenge the thoughts that come into our head in such a way. Because, you can end up getting married to somebody or in a marriage already, and you've had these base desires, you've had these fantasies, and then the opportunity comes to live out one of your fantasies. The problem is you've already broken down so many of the barriers that need to be broken down for someone in a relationship to cheat. But you've already broken down so many of those barriers already. You've already given yourself permission to fantasize about doing that. So challenge these ways of thinking there. Go back, think about the things you've fantasized about in that way, and challenge it and say, no, you don't want to do that stuff now. Get rid of them. Unpack all that stuff and throw it in the bin. Anyway, that'll do for that one. You take care. God bless. I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.